Elderly. Good afternoon, everyone. So, may I ask you people, what comes to your mind first when you see the word elderly or when you see elderly people? Anyone?
My grandma.
Yeah.
Your grandma?
John.
Yeah.
White hair.
Christine, I haven't finished marking you yet.
It's Ray. Any feelings?
It was Ray, wasn't it?
Any feelings that come to you when you
Ray,
see
you haven't started yet, so.
Weak.
sympathy? What? Any more? Sick. So that's reality, like that's how our perception would be like more negative life. So you say it would be lonely, frail, sick. But it depends on the perception. Like you could see elderly as cool people. Like being elderly means having much more time for yourself because your children already have their own lives. You've got grandkids, so you've got more time for yourself, spending more time on your hobbies, which you have not done before, or spending more time with your loved ones, or discovering things such as these two here, playing video games. So you might have guessed what my topic would be. It would be about elderly, but it's not just about elderly. To be specific, it's about elderly abuse. So, what is elder abuse? Elder abuse is a term that refers to any harm or neglect done to any older person that is violent or abusive. The abuse can be caused by a family member, by a friend, by a staff, or by anyone upon whom the older person relies for basic needs. So, it's reality here, because surprisingly, elder abuse doesn't choose gender, religion, ethnicity. It happens everywhere. In United States, it is reported every year that 1.6 million to 2 million of seniors are abused every year. And why is this so? It could be probably the people whom these elderly people are relying are stressed, or they have mental disorders, or they could be like under some substance abuse like drugs or alcohol. And what's much more surprising is that majority of these abusers are the people whom the elderly people are relying to, who are dependent to. So, elder abuse. There are lots of types of elder abuse. And also, according to Age Concern, which is an organization here in New Zealand, it has been working in New Zealand for 25 years. They say that it is estimated that only 16% of all incidents of elder abuse come to the attention of service, which they can intervene in support of. Why is this so? Why are there still abuses that aren't reported to the authorities or such organization? Probably it's because the elderly people are ashamed to tell that they have a family member who abuses them, or they are afraid that if they report the person who abused them, which they are dependent to, they would have no one to go to. So that is why some of these happen, that they are not reported. So going back, there are a lot of types of elder abuse. First type of abuse is the physical abuse, which involves the slapping of the elderly, the hitting of the elderly. Yes, this happens because according to the Age Concern, this comprises 20% of the abuse that has reported to the organization here in New Zealand. Next is the psychological abuse. This involves like blackmailing the older people, shouting to them, insulting them, and according to Age Concern, this comprises 60% of the abuse that has been reported to them. sad, it's true. Next is the material or financial abuse. This involves spending the assets of the older people without their consent. Next is the social or physical isolation, which involves abandonment of the older people, leaving them alone, or even locking them in the room so that they won't make any fuss to people around. Next is the passive neglect. This means that, for example, you forget. This means unintentional neglect of the older people, like you forget to feed them, to give them their medications. And next is the active neglect. This is the opposite of the passive neglect in terms that it is intentional. The people intentionally not give medication, not give them warmth or shelter. Next is the self-abuse, which involves the older person itself abusing, like taking alcohol and drugs. Next is the sexual abuse. This is the shocking one, because you wouldn't think someone would do that to another people, right? But it is true, because by experience, I've worked before in a rest home as a kitchen hand, and one of the residents there was sexually abused by one of the caregivers. Yeah, and it happens, there was an immediate expulsion of the caregiver, and he wasn't allowed to work anymore in any rest home facility. Next is the violation of rights, like withholding information to the elderly, not letting them know that, like for example, the son or the daughter has sold some of the assets and not letting them know something about it. And second to lastly is the late onset spouse abuse. It could be like compared to domestic abuse when, for example, when the other spouse is younger and the other is older, and there's the abuse of power because the younger one knows that the older one couldn't decide well, so he or she takes, for example, they give sedatives or morphines so that all people. So what could be a solution for this in order to look after the elderly people? One solution could be choosing the right environment for these elderly people in order to prevent these outrageous things that could happen to them. So the first environment that they could be exposed in which they could prevent this is taking care of them in their homes, in their own homes in which they live in, or we could otherwise call it home care. Now, one advantage of looking after them is that there could be a family that could look after them, or they could hire a support worker 24/7. So one is living at their own home. They could maintain their level of freedom. They could do whatever they want, at their own expense, at their own time. They could do their hobbies. Next is they could enjoy family presence 24/7, and it provides cheaper service because it's their own home. And it maintains one's dignity and independence because they could do whatever they want. And lastly, it provides safety. But the disadvantages, and extends and improves quality of life. They heal more faster when they're at home. But the disadvantage is that 70% of the elder abuse and neglected cases, according to each concern again, is between the family, is committed by the family. 80% of those abusers are said to be their sons and daughters. So, another solution could be placing these dependent elderly people on rest homes. One of the advantages is it provides a structured environment. It has a routine on what time would they be able to eat or take their medicines. So there's no short way of neglecting. There's no a short instance of neglect. So, and it gives a chance to remain as independent as possible because there's no family, so they rely on themselves. Next, it helps the family of the elderly because the families have their own families. They have their own families. They have their own things to do. So by the rest home, someone could look after the elderly, and also safety, because these rest homes has curfews and housekeeping, someone to clean after the old people, and provides quick accessibility to medical supplies and medicine if ever something happens to the old people. But still, it still has the 30% of elder abuse and neglected. It's still not safe, but then when you try to compare between the two of them, they have their disadvantages. More freedom, higher risk in elder abuse. Limited freedom, lesser risk in elder abuse. So this is the deal breaker. The rest home is much more better for their safety. So to conclude, both homes have bats in it, so research is based on New Zealand. It may be applied to Western countries, but it may not be applicable to other culture. It depends with the culture and how they treat their elderly people. For example, in Maori and Pacific, they have their ways on treating their old people. And I think there's no time anymore for video. Lastly, importantly, all of us should respect the elderly, because once they were young like us, they have contributed in the society. And if we are lucky enough, we could reach the old age and we could be like them. So respect the elderly people. Thank you. And May, do you have any questions?
No.
Yeah. Right first.
First, I might apologize to John. Sorry for that. Sorry for that.
It's too late now, Ray. You might change your mind.
Well, okay, so you mentioned problem with elder abuse.
Yes.
Did this also happen on children or young people?
Yes.
It is, right?
So that's your question.
Yeah, it is true.
Yes.
Also happen on.
Yeah, it does really happen, and most of these child abuse or other people or any type of abuse are much more highlighted in the media. That's why you can see it always, but then elder abuse is not that always highlighted in the media. That's why you can see.
Sorry,
Does that
can
answer?
yeah. Then ask the next question. Hold the question. Can you hear? What's that question page? My apologies.
It's fine.
First one was Ray.
Yeah.
What was your question, Ray?
I asked about she mentioned problem with elder abuse. Is that true, or is this also happen on children or young people?
Okay. That's fine. Right. Second question, Ms. Kay.
Next question.
Yeah, Nina. In my case, I have grandmother, and she lives alone, but she doesn't want to. She is sick now, but she doesn't want to go to like rest home, and so my mom said like we can take care of you, but she doesn't want to live with us because of her freedom. So in this case, how do we do?
Firstly, yeah, thank you for your question. Yeah, all people could be difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we should also realize that, like them, we're people, so they have the right to assert what they want. As much as possible, they deserve to like live their last days enjoying. So it's her choice. Firstly, you should respect her, that if she wants to live alone. And also maintain your relationship. So it might cause conflict between you if you force her to do those things. And one solution is that you could visit her always. And another is that you could may I ask, is your mother okay? Could she look after herself? Does she need any medication, like
My mom?
Your grandmom?
Her mom? She needs it, but she refuses, and then she like changes her mind like every day.
Okay.
So we always respect her.
Okay.
And then yeah, I call her like every day, but she because of her injury in his like leg, so she doesn't want to like get my call
Okay.
because it can't be bothered.
Or
Yeah.
if she doesn't want to be disturbed, like you could hire a support worker to look after her, or even ask her neighbors. So like, could you look after her, what she might be doing? So somehow you could keep tabs on her.
Yeah. I will try.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I will try.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, Damaso.
If elderly person lives with someone who abused the elderly, so how can this person look for help outside? If maybe it's so. Yep.
So are you asking the elderly person how could they look for help, or the abuser how could they look for help?
The elderly.
The elderly. Yep. In New Zealand setting, one I could suggest is by contacting this organization that I have just mentioned, the Age Concern, or they could contact immediately the police. Yeah. The police. Yeah. They could contact
Thank you.
Yes. Here in New Zealand, that's only New Zealand context. So probably in other countries, police would be like immediate answer to everything.
Okay, thank you very much, Dimple.